Hello, I'm back and we are going to talk about intuition in this video. Probably more as well. I'm gonna check how long the video will be first. And well, intuition in Kataronics, it's kind of it's just like the feeling function, I feel like intuition has been seen in the wrong, inaccurate way, mostly because our society doesn't necessarily want to believe these things, and maybe I'm wrong, but let's at least entertain this idea. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of connect metaphysics. Intuition to metaphysics, which is kind of the reality behind or beyond what we are physically aware of, that we are aware of as a species, and like the most obvious reality that we can see and touch and experience. Yeah, and actually, I've already like we looked at sensing as the particle, right, and intuition as the wave, and that is kind of true. But I want to go even deeper into that because I think even the wave is actually somewhat separate from source in a way. The wave is kind of it's not so localized, but it's localized in the other dimension, like like it's the same wave, right? That's going. And keep continuing, or yeah, I don't know if that made sense, but it's like it's not the ultimate non-local phenomena, right? And the ultimate local non-local phenomena, I would say, is actually kind of more related to the quantum field. So in actuality, intuition in this theory is more related to the quantum field than the wave. But in more practical terms, maybe we can see it more like wave, because wave is kind of it's kind of a middle thing, right, between particle and quantum in a way. Probably, I'm just guessing. In a way, it's my intuition, and yeah, maybe like let's see if we are source, we consciousness our source, and you could see like the souls could be in a sense the waves out from source. So one soul could be like one ray out of source. You can kind of think of the source like a sun, and all the rays coming out of the sun you could think of as the souls, right? So, and that's also a direct like analogy to us being light bodies, or having light bodies. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of the metaphysical body behind the quantum, and also gradually from sensing to that beyond. So it's like I'm probably gonna say more about it later. But for example, chakras and stuff like that. There's a lot of I've noticed like a lot of intuitive people. It's like they can sense structures that is invisible to us in a way, but they are actually there too. At least I believe so, and then it looks like science are more and more discovering that actually the aura was always there. We just didn't know that it was there. But somebody thought it was like they could just feel that there is this structure that we can't see, and like the electromagnetic field around the heart and the body. That is kind of a direct example of that's basically a sort of aura, right? Yeah. So the like one job that intuition have as opposed to sensing is actually to hold the infinite possibilities, right? The potential for creation, essentially. Though yeah, and sensing is actually sensing is able to separate something into something separate. It kind of makes one possibility separate from the others, right? So intuition is kind of in its most core form. It's kind of it's the potential for everything, for every possibilities. But also possibilities are by nature separate, right? You have one possibility here and one possibility here, and so forth. So sensing actually helps to manifest one possibility over another, right? Intuition is kind of more like the canvas where everything is possible. Yeah. Okay. So it kind of in humans, it's kind of the awareness outside or meta to the VR, or the possibility that kind of like the human reality is a possibility that is manifest, right? So if you are human with high intuitive awareness, you might kind of have the ability to see beyond just being in that human reality. You can see what comes before even being human in a way. Yeah, that's at least the idea that I'm gonna entertain here. And yeah, it kind of accounts for the manifestation of realities. But as I said, sensing is actually very involved in that. But we could see from our perspective as humans that if there is more dimensions and such that we can't see, it's kind of easier for us to see that that's the abstract kind of dimensions, right? Even though they also have a element of sensing to them, but it's much less sensing to them, so we can't kind of touch and we can't define them very clearly. Yeah, and here's a quote: "An unknown cannot be found when limited to the measure of the known," and that's probably, I think, a lot of logical scientific minds starts to kind of grasp that. It's like you can't measure something outside of what it can actually measure, in a way. You can't find anything new if you use what is in that creation. Like you can't find anything beyond being a human if you are using the human and the human senses to actually try to find something. You can try to find it with the senses, in a way, not the human senses, but actually we have senses, in my opinion at least, beyond the human structure too. For example, if we have a soul body, that kind of includes its own set of senses that we probably can still use if we are in the right mindset and kind of remembers that how we are doing it, which is probably, for example, intuition, right? Okay. Yeah, and yeah, high openness is very, very correlated to intuition, because when you see reality from actually outside of it, you kind of you're not lost in the reality itself, and that makes you very open-minded. It makes you question things. Even if you see something, you're still questioning if it's like that, in a way. It's a very like philosophical mindset. Yeah, I don't know if that made sense, but it's kind of the ability to detach yourself actually from the bubble that you are experiencing, and you kind of detach yourself from it. That's why kind of many heavy people with high intuition, they kind of even separate themselves from being human, basically. I don't feel you probably like I don't even know if that stuff is true or not. But you have many people saying they are saying they are like a star seed and stuff like that, which basically means I'm not even a human. I've been an alien somewhere else. I've not been living on Earth in the past, and that's kind of an example of kind of detaching yourself from what you are experiencing and like going into deeper layers of that. But again, I don't know if star seeds are actually true or not. I think when you are very open-minded, you can of course make conspiracies too. It's kind of since you are you're guessing so much that you kind of don't use concrete certain facts as much, and the side effect of that will actually be that you are going to guess more, and when we are guessing, we are often guessing wrong, and we are thinking we are intuitively grasping something, and it's actually some sort of distortion instead. So that's actually what defines good quality intuition, is actually to what extent you can grasp the like intuitive insight without it being distorted by something else. So if you can, for example, the person that kind of said, we have auras, actually, I can feel it, I can intuitively get this download, and that's actually what it is. That's like a very non-distorted intuition, and the same would be the case for example, the heart. We knew that the heart was related to love for a very, very long time ago. It's been excuse me, just gonna turn this up. Okay, so the heart is actually related to love, and religions and esotericism and old spirituality, they've all actually been able to grasp that truth through their intuition. So there's a lot of stuff in religion and in all of these very open-minded kind of spaces that is actually true, and I think that's why people read stuff like that and feel like, there is something here. Yeah. Which is, by the way, proved by science now, that the heart and love is related. That's actually proven. You can see it in the Heart Math Institute, for example. They are very, very scientific about it, so it's very easy to digest no matter who you are. If you like science, or if you are religious, or no matter what. It's kind of very neutral information. It doesn't come with opinions. It's just measurement. Yeah. Okay. So by definition, intuition is kind of the opposite of S. So it doesn't have a location, and it doesn't have time, and it doesn't have place or space. And it doesn't have any separation. That's what I meant by, like, it's like this core of all ideas at once, but none of them are real because they are not manifest, right? It's like just the potential for all that is. And yeah, so it's kind of easy to describe it as nothing in a way, actually, because it's no thing, it's no separate thing in a way. It's kind of just vastness or void or space or what you would call it, and actually not space, but like it may be defined as nothing in a way, but at the same time it's also everything, if that makes sense. So one could as well say that S is the nothing and N is the everything. So it's kind of a paradox in a way. Yeah. So because it does hold divinity, right? Divinity and source. and in a way that is everything instead of nothing. So it's kind of a paradox to grasp in that way. Yeah, and the world or reality is of course gradual from S to N or N to S, and you could see like N doesn't have time and time and place, but like from N to S you have like this expansion going. So it's not like it expands in time, but it expands in kind of a form that is kind of outside 3D in a way, because 3D is kind of what is time and space, if I understood it right. But there's an expansion at least, which time are irrelevant for the expansion in a way, and then this expansion goes out to all the possibilities and what is manifest in different realities essentially. Yeah. Just an idea, right? And okay, so intuition is sensing less physical data in meta body. Yeah, it's a long time ago I wrote this, but it's like yeah okay. So it's about the gradual thing, right? So people who are good at intuition are very rarely, if ever, only using intuition. They are actually combining it with sensing in a way. So it's kind of like we have these bodies. We have the physical body, and probably the most popular other bodies is like etheric body and astral body and emotional body, mental body, stuff like that. And and there's a lot of ideas out there on the different bodies. I'm not sure what of them are true and not true. You also have in acupuncture the meridians. That's a part of like a less physical body, but actually the meridians is said to be pretty physical. It's just barely not physical in a way. And I actually I believe in the meridians, because I've had like a meditation where I actually kind of pressed on an organ inside the brain. I'm not sure the English name is organ inside the brain here, and like I checked the internet because I felt like a numb feeling in two of my teeth, and it was these two teeth. And I was like, why do I feel? Why can I do this pressure inside here and feel it exactly in these two teeth? And then I checked, like, does this have anything with meridians to do? And I checked it up on the internet, and this gland that I was pressing on, it was exactly those two teeth. It was the meridian system was connected to exactly those two teeth. Like I think all the teeth had like their own meridian system with different organs or something like that, and I didn't even know that. I just thought, maybe this is related, and I checked it out. So personally, actually believe in meridians. Okay. Yeah, so you could think of, like, if you have less and less physical bodies, you can kind of the more the intuitive it is, the more the less physical the body is in a way, and you're grasping the information from the less physical body, and the more kind of, as I talked about in the previous video, is like sensing is also a sense of intuition, but it's more instinctual, right? So the sensing intuition in a human is like you feel more like what is related to being a human instinctually from the past, and just how our body is built in a way, like intuitive understanding of melatonin, for instance, like I should go to bed before this because this and this. Yeah. Yeah, while on the intuition side, it's like, okay, you have the chakra body, for example, and the chakra body is probably more or less more identical to even if I'm a human or if I'm an ape or if I'm some other animal. The chakra system is actually kind of probably not that different. I would assume. I'm not sure actually, but it's like I think maybe the closer we get to the sensing or to the physical form, the less identical we are to other animals. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if you could grasp that idea, but to me that I think that makes sense because you have like most animals, they have a heart and they have a brain and they have some place to yeah, it's we have the same we have a lot of similarities even though we look wildly different on like the surface or in the complete manifest form. Yeah. Yeah, and actually, the most metaphysical body that is possible to grasp, like beyond the astral body and beyond the soul body and beyond the yeah, collective or collective human body, if that is a body, like beyond all of those, we would have a state where we are sharing the same body with everyone, with everything that lives, actually. So that kind of also makes sense, by the way, if we take the concept of forgiveness, for example. So if I don't forgive another person or consciousness, it's kind of self-abusive because I'm doing it to my own body, right? To my own, like my ultimate metaphysical body. I'm harming it because that body is also my body. Yeah. Okay. So for human practicality, I'm not sure if that's how I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah. So like in practical terms, intuition is less dense body parts because it's kind of weird to talk about intuition in its most core form all the time because it's kind of impossible to wrap our head around like what is the core of the quantum in a way, and potential and what exists. So for more practicality, we kind of just in Kataronics, it's kind of when we use the term intuition, it's refers often just to less physical aspects of what we are used to. So basically, auras and chakras and unity bodies and yeah, archetypes, for instance. And a cache is also a concept that I would connect with intuition. It's kind of the yeah, and archetypes are probably kind of existential makeup in a way. It's kind of you can paint a little bit with this archetype and a bit with this and a bit with this, and you get a new possibility out from it. Like mixing the king and the creature, and maybe you get some kind of new possibility out of that, some new expression. So yeah, the sensing and the intuitive kind of functions in Kataronics is actually seen upon as bodies, actually, as physical bodies and metaphysical bodies. And both of these bodies will have either an action, so they are doing an action, or they will have a posture, which is kind of also an action. But a posture is basically you have a kind of symbolic stance on something, and it will a posture does something to our physiology, and the same with action. It also does something with our physiology. or yeah, are everything in a way. Yeah, so intuition is actually the metaphysical action in posture. So what I mean by that is like if you imagine something, it's actually an action. Imagination is an action in this case. Even though we can see it, it's a moving energy, and it's a moving in our less physical bodies actually, in a way. So when you are imagining something, it will create a response in our bodies, just in the exact same way that if I moved my arms in a victory pose, that would be a physical way to influence my body. But if I imagine myself, in a victory pose or anything else that kind of feels victorious in my imagination, it's going to influence me. Yeah. So even actually, even posture, in my opinion, exists in the metaphysical body, which is kind of like symbols. I think INFJs, for instance, they can use this a lot. It's like a very detailed imagination, but it's kind of standing still in a way. It's and that is kind of a symbol. Like if you can have if you have a symbol of a phoenix, for instance, in your in your third eye, or in your imagination, in your mind's eye, as people often say, it's kind of it's possible to get physiological changes if you actually manage to tap into the energy of the symbol, which is probably easier in dreams, I would think, or in spiritual contexts, because it's kind of like music, you know. If you listen to music in the background, it doesn't actually do much to you, but if you immerse yourself in the music, it's going to have a different effect. It's kind of you successfully kind of identify with the music, and I think the same is possible with metaphysical postures, such as symbols like a phoenix, for instance, and it will give you it will kind of give you downloads or upgrades, or I don't know how to put it in the right term, but it will your identification with it will do something to you that is good or bad. And yeah, bad too can also happen, because as we know, if we imagine something that is scary, something scary, we're gonna have panic attack and everything, because the body doesn't actually care about is it real in the physical world or not. It doesn't care about that. It just cares about what kind of action and posture that you are taking, that you are doing. So even fear can kind of have this nocebo effect on you, that you kind of create yourself in a worse way, in a way. Yeah. Okay, so I think intuition is actually, I would call it the most pure imagination that is possible. So intuition is very, very connected with imagination. But this theory also kind of want to suggest that imagination is not, it's not just, it's actually real. That is kind of what it want to suggest. But of course, it's only real in, it's kind of real in the most the least physical dimension of reality. The imagination is real, and if the physical world allows it to manifest, then it will. If you hold the imagination for a long time, it will kind of help. The imagination you have will try to get into into the physical reality if it can, if you hold it for a long time, together with the feeling and the identification and the immersion with it. Yeah, and as we probably understand, not all ideas and imaginations will manifest easily. There's a lot of potentials that kind of is too, basically too unrealistic. And the less realistic it is, the harder it will be to get it down into this reality. Yeah, because it has to be realistic to the experience that you're having, to the virtual reality that you are living in. It must be as realistic as possible to that reality. That's how easily it also appears in it. Yeah, so the idea is that intuition is actually the most pure imagination, which is kind of like the quantum field. It's like if you the quantum field can place a particle where it wants and kind of just draw with that particle, like imagination essentially. So the quantum field might be kind of the more pure imagination, which doesn't make complex images so much, but more like it can make complex images when more consciously used in a way. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of just a very I feel like that's a very core way to see that, placing a potential particle, a location or potential separation at one point, and then combining it with another and another and another and another, and you get basically what we call imagination, right? And that's why I think the quantum is actually just core imagination in a way. It's the most pure imagination that we have. Yeah, so I think I'm not actually quite sure what I meant by that, but soul imagination, I think the soul is having the capacity to imagine. I think that's kind of a birthright for the soul. Let's pretend if there's a God and the God is creating the souls, and it probably gave all the souls the capacity to imagine as just something inherent for everyone. So training the capacity to imagine is kind of relevant to training your intuition. As we see with NI development, for instance, I think it's very, very common for us to look at NI and we assume it's wild imagination and fantasy at the beginning, as the core, like the beginning stage of developing that function. I think that's how we see it, and suddenly when they are very experienced in what they're doing, they're actually finding information in reality that is it's actually real, and that we can kind of see is real through science. Yeah. Yeah, and actually, just since I said that, maybe I should say that I think NI is kind of it's kind of like reverse engineering the imagination that our virtual reality is, right? So it's kind of like it tries to understand how. Actually, it tries to understand how a reality functions, but not as itself. It tries to understand what kind of archetypes it was made of, in a way. It kind of tries to reverse imagine the reality, maybe, or that is one of the things that NI tries to do, and prioritize to do. Again, just maybe. Yeah. So imagination in Kataronics, we actually look upon as the same as creation. So when we imagine, we create something. So everything that is created, including VR realities, is actually comes from imagination. And I'm not talking about the human imagination. Actually, I'm talking more about maybe larger beings that is kind of beyond that imagining us to be real, or our reality at least. Like divinity is imagining the physical reality that we experience to be real, and we are kind of imagining inside that reality again, like creating smaller creations inside their creation, and we are probably limited to their creation, I would assume, actually, at least in a large sense. And SI, as we have been talking about earlier, is like unconscious thinking loops that just goes over and over and over. Is kind of Kataronics kind of see upon SI as imagination too, but it's an unconscious imagination. So it's an imagination that it's repeating itself all the time. So it exists, and we can see it because it always repeats itself to be real, and that's the job, right, of SI, to stay the same, to stay stable. So it's kind of helping us souls to have stability in a way. We can make a virtual reality, and we can make it stable, and how it functions. So yeah. So I've basically seen there's a lot of typologies that says that intuition is future oriented, and I don't think that is actually true. I think it's more like a by effect. That's kind of more like how it looks, because it's maybe kind of it likes change in a way, kind of opposite to S, right? It likes to think about what can change, what can we create here, and that naturally is kind of future in a way, because if you want to create something, you kind of have to go to the future, I suppose, maybe. But actually, I would say the future is actually sensing in a way, which is, of course, the complete opposite of what has been said in other typologies. But my idea is like the future is shaped by the past. So what is happening in the past is actually determining what happens in the future. Many people even believe that the future is kind of set in stone, that it's already planned in a way. It's already there, because and I understand that idea. I don't think it is like that, but I think if we see sensing as the only thing real, then it would make sense to think like that, if only sensing was the reality. But the idea is actually that you can change the future with the intuition, which kind of because I think intuition is what actually happens now, outside the time and space. Actually, it's like it's a super now in a way, because if you imagine something consciously in the now, that is what's going to change the future. So if you suddenly get a vision from some, like you want to be a musician or singer or whatever, and you didn't do that before in the past, it means kind of that you introduce something new to this loop that you are. Your habitual personality is kind of getting input from your soul or from you or from the conscious mind. And that is an imagination, like, oh, that would be cool to be a musician and sing. So you introduce some new ideas into your habitual personality, and that will be able to change the trajectory of your future. You wouldn't go in exactly the same line. You would actually introduce some flavor to it. So you would have other ideas and other thoughts and other feelings, and you would just make slightly different paths based on introducing this new creation. Yeah. Yeah, so I think usually we are very identified with our habitual personality. That is our sensing personality, right? We think we are human, and we think we are this person or a figure inside. Like some people would call it ego. I don't like to use the word ego because it has so much negative connotations to it, and it's like, if I use that word, it's kind of like asking people to be triggered in a way because they've heard it in so many negative contexts before. So I like to instead just call it habitual personality. I think it's much more clear. So you can take that with you if you want. There's actually different ideas though about what the ego is. Some movements like I think Christianity, for example, would call ego for the unloving habitual self, while Buddhism would just call it the habitual self in a way. So there's many like ideas. What is ego? And I think ego comes from Latin, and it just means self. And since every culture have been kind of in disagreement about what the self is, then yeah, it's like all over the place. I don't think it's a word we should use anymore. I think it's more effective to just find new terms for that. So that's just the philosophy that you can take with you if you like it. Okay, so yeah, when we identify with our habitual self and human self and like personality, it's kind of you let yourself live what you are, right? Which is kind of good. If you wanna experience who you are as a human and as who you are as a human or a habit. But if you don't like all of that, if there is something you want to change in that experience that you're having, you actually have to start to identify with your superconscious instead. So you have to identify with basically intuition in a way. You have to identify with something you're not. And that's probably what many people call ego death, actually, because ego death is like, you don't identify with your habitual self anymore. But it's like, I don't know why they are calling it death, and it's kind of stupid in my opinion, because it's more like you just have to identify with your superconscious self, which is basically pure potential in a way. Maybe first you could say soul first, and even further than that, you are kind of everything or pure potential, and that is kind of at least personally, I always kind of identified myself in that way, like I am who I want to be rather than who I am right now. I think many people think about it like that. So it's basically to superconscious identification is actually to identify with your free will in a way. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah, and we're gonna go closer into what is authentic too, because to identify with your ability to manifest yourself as you want, that's one thing, but what do you actually want? So we're gonna go more into that on feeling, or on heart feeling. So it's like many people knows how to super consciously identify themselves and kind of manifest new futures, right? That's basically the end heroes are very competent at doing this. But the only issue is, even if they can manifest new things, did the desire actually come from themselves or from a heartfelt place? So at worst case, actually, in worst case, you can use intuition to manifest something you didn't want into your habitual self. So in a sense, actually, the habitual self helps us a lot, because it's kind of in a dream, right? You can have a nightmare. Just by thinking about it, you feel horrible. And like if it was like that in real life, as we know it in the physical life, it would kind of be too easy to manifest something, because if it was too easy to manifest something, like you chose an image and it's actually a fearful image, and you feel bad, and you don't want that to happen, you don't like it, but you still choose to focus on that image, it would just manifest like this, and life would be very unstable and hell, actually, if you didn't understand spiritual ways of living. It would be very much of a hell, like yeah, so the like habitual self kind of actually it wants to stay stable, and that actually helps us to it allows us to focus on what we really want. And if we think a thought we didn't want to think about for some seconds, it's like, that's no problem, it's not going to manifest anyway. You actually got to hold that thought with the emotion for, I don't know, it depends on what you're going to manifest, but like you would need to hold that for weeks and months and maybe years. And luckily we tends to we kind of tend to focus on what we want to have, right? Unless we are have a chronic anxiety and chronic depression and stuff. That's kind of an issue in itself, and I've been there. I've had anxiety myself. I don't have that anymore, but I didn't know back then. I didn't know that I was creating a dark future for myself. So like the spiritual understanding is actually crucial for our manifest abilities to I mean for manifestation to be a good thing, we need to be spiritual, basically, or else we are in every place we don't want to be all the time. Kind of like having psychosis or schizophrenia or anything like that. Like you don't have control over it, and it would not be a good experience at all. Observing from the known. Yeah, yeah. So actually, what is about the S future, the sensing future, is actually it's predictable, because if you observe, if you just use your known, what you know about something, and you predict the future based on what you know from before, it's actually then you are using sensing instead of intuition to create your future. So actually, a very common thing about deep spiritual manifestation is actually to kind of don't predict how the outcome will come to happen. It's more like you just expect something unusual to happen, and it will, rather than predict how it's gonna happen. But from it might be practical to predict how it will happen. That's the usual thing we are doing, right? So I'm not sure if there should be one or the other. I think maybe it comes to how spiritually developed we are, how open our chakras are, and I think the less open chakras, the more we have to kind of relate to the virtual reality in a matter-to-matter sense, or the realistic sense, right? While the more spiritual embodied you have become, the less you can actually, the more you can rely on kind of making stuff happen for you rather than you doing them in the traditional way. I'm going back to that later. Yeah, so creating from the unknown. Creating from intuition, I would say, is to create some new future that you couldn't really predict, right? You like, this is in a pure sense, of course. So I think we would do a mix of the two usually, but basically in the extreme sense, then creating from a pure imagination is going to create some unpredictable future that didn't actually exist before. Yeah. Actually, that was the make. So, yeah, it's this concept we call fake it till you make it, right? Fake it till you make it. So this is actually what that is. You take something that is not your habitual self, and since it's not your habitual self, it's going to be fake in a way, or that's how we see it. From the habitual space, we see it fake because it's not the habitual self. But when embracing that fake potential, or like you're faking something, and you believe that you believe it's real, you are faking it, but at the same time, you're kind of irrational, and you say, no, this is real. This is what I believe in, even though I'm faking it. This is what I'm believing in. That's super conscious identification, actually. So you're identifying with your actual potential rather than who you are in the habitual structure. And over time, if you do that over time, it's going to manifest, like, hopefully, at least. It depends on how realistic too it was, but it's going to, over time, if you feel like this fake thing is true, it's actually going to habituate and manifest, and suddenly you can look back, you can go back into your habitual self, and you see that this is who, and now I've become this thing that it was not me. I've like, you have changed yourself by believing that you are something else than you were before. It's yeah, I'm actually going to talk a lot more about that, because it's the most core thing about these two dimensions, in a sense, the sensing world and intuitive world, which is most practical and important for us humans to grasp, so we can kind of heal ourselves and become who we are, who we can become, instead of talking to yourself like, no, I can't do this, I'm too shy, blah blah, right? It's kind of these things are actually just holding you back from what you could actually do. You just have to believe that imagination is real. That is actually what it is. In order to fake it till you make it, you have to believe that imagination is real. That is what it is. And I think personally, like Kataronics kind of suggests here, is that imagination is real. So you don't have to just believe that it is real and kind of pretend like that. You actually just have to know that it is real, and that is kind of what I believe. Yeah, and hopefully logically too. I've been explaining why. And yeah, actually, Carl Jung too was on the same page in a way, because he said the pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. What does that actually mean? Because sense is actually sensing. That is what he refers to here. Sense is sensing, and intuition is what he called nonsense, because that is how most people would see intuition, right? It looks like nonsense. It looks like imagination and fantasy. Yeah. So and here he says it's not right and wrong. It's not right and it's not wrong. It's not none of those. It's that is from the sensing perspective. If you're a sensor and you believe reality is like this, and you see some person want to manifest something using imagination and fantasy, well, that person is going to call it wrong. It's not reality. It's that's not how it works, right? That's what he would say, and he would be correct in just the sensing world, but he wouldn't. He would be disassociated with the totality of reality and what exists. Yeah. So the pendulum of the mind alternates between sense and nonsense. What he basically says is that it should go back and forth between them. Like you should fake it till you make it, and then you should realize that you become it, and you are back in sense again. So you kind of go to the imagination world, and then you go back to the sensing world, and actually live your life in a way that is not purely automatic and predetermined by the world or by the seemingly real virtual reality. Yeah. So this is kind of an idea I find somewhere where I just wanted to bring it up, which is that you have ether, air, fire, water, and earth. I think maybe it was paganism I found it. I'm not quite sure, but it is basically this idea that you have less physical and physical, and the less physical is kind of the idea world. It's basically all thoughts and ideas you have are real. They are real in the ether or in the air dimension, for example. They are real there, and then you have to kind of bring it to the next dimension, which is more and more solid dimensions, and in the end it will take form as earth or as concrete form in the reality that we can see and touch and sense. Yeah. So this is again, fake it till you make it. And what is that? It's basically placebo. Placebo is to fake it until you make it. And I've said that placebo is the same as less nocebo. I see now that it's nocebo is actually also fake it till you make it, but you are faking it in a way that you don't want it to be. So it's like when you fake it till you make it, but you fake something bad, like look so horrible, nobody likes me, blah blah blah. If that is not even true, but you are starting to entertain outside of your habitual personality that is true, it's gonna become true, right? It's kind of like if you keep doing it, it's going to influence how you behave and how you speak, how you think, and how you feel, and it's gonna affect everything essentially. So fake it till you make it is a good thing, but only if you actually know that what you want with it. Otherwise, it's can be even damaging to your. It can make your habitual personality even worse if you don't know what you like. Yeah. So But the good thing is, if you do it the right way, it's gonna be placebo. It's gonna have positive effects for you. And again, placebo is basically, it's not wrong. It's actually who you are. It's your potential. Placebo is, and nocebo too, is intuition. It's imagination, and it is your potential for who you can actually become if you believe the imagination is real. So the good thing is that you live in less nocebo, because you could actually say that the habitual personality that we have as humans is very, very, very influenced by nocebo, because you have, like, you applied that nocebo in your past experiences, because you didn't have spiritual awareness yet, and you kind of integrated all these negative beliefs and negative ways to treat yourself and others, and like, you don't even know it's there, right? I didn't know that fear was bad for me. I thought it would help me survive, but like, you have all these actions in your personal habitual personality that you actually wouldn't have there if you would choose it over again. It's just that it's become so normal to you that you believe it's who you are. You believe you are not capable of this and that, and yeah. So that is kind of if we master this, it allows you to become more who you are, and embrace more of your potential. But it's actually together with the feeling, with FI and FE, that you start to grasp what you actually are, which is related to the heart and to love. And if you are aware of what you actually like, and then fake it till you make it, until you get to that authentic place, then your life will become better, and you will hold more love for yourself and for others. Yeah, so there is a sort of authenticity in nonsense, in this fake it till you make it. You could call is actually you can reframe it to something I would say is more accurate, which is stop being fake and do what you actually can do instead. So it's more like, again, back to this idea of ego death, right? It's like you stop being fake and you start to apply your actual abilities by believing in imagination, essentially, in placebo, and your own ability to apply change in the world, to have a cause and effect, right? To be the cause rather than just believing the effect. Yeah. Though again, I just want to mention it, that true authenticity. This is the authenticity of your potential, but the authenticity in who you actually are as like a living thing is actually more related to love. So just to make that a distinction, like love is actually what I would call authentic in the first possible way. This is more the authenticity to manifest, like you are aware of your possibilities. Okay, so yeah, and we see, like, in brain scans on how the brain functions, we can kind of scientifically see what's going on. Like, you get beta brain waves, which kind of connects you into the sensory reality, right? You start to hear and you start to get a grasp of details in the virtual reality. You're starting to identify with the virtual reality, actually, to the extent that you, when you wake up in the morning, you actually probably starts to identify with who you are as a human, and the brain is kind of programmed to not remember what you did in your sleep, especially in the deeper sleep. so it kind of you see these weird movies in your mind as you're waking up, which probably is related to some of the stuff that happened. But what we remember from dreams are usually from the light sleep, the REM sleep, or like right before you wakes up, and that information is probably mostly information from your physical structure, and that includes your human beliefs and your human traumas and your human life and the habitual personality that you know as the awake human. But it's also when you sleep even deeper. It's like Einstein and other people, like you could grasp more non-personal content, maybe even personal from your soul type of personal thing, but it's less physical, less like the dreams are less derived from your physical structures, and therefore also the physical structures, when you wake up to them, it's going to kind of forget. It doesn't fit like in this reality anyway, so it's going to kind of forget it. But Carl Jung did a dream. He analyzed his dream for many reasons, and one of them is like getting more beyond the virtual identification in a way. So we could see what is actually going on under here, both in what's going on in the physical body and what goes on more metaphysically and beyond our physical body. That's how I understand it, at least. And you can actually see. Yeah, a girl told me this a few days ago, that her grandpa were visiting her in her dream, and also after he died, he was present around her, and like I've heard that a lot of times. It's very, very, very not normal for people to get dead people to visit people in their dreams, because it's easier to connect with a person when they are not identified with the virtual reality. So the less they are identified with the virtual reality, the easier it is for dead people to communicate with that person. And if lucky, the person even have like this twilight zone where he can even remember that it was a visit going on. That's again just my understanding. I'm not completely sure if that stuff is true. Yeah. So the closer you are to delta, probably the more metaphysical identification you have. Yeah, cannot be memorized by the physical brain. Yeah, so what I believe is actually that our brain is, a lot of the function in our brain is actually to reduce our consciousness, like fitting that large kind of soul into this small human experience. And it probably needs to be done for a variety of reasons. Yeah, but that's actually what I believe. Like, basically, the soul kind of have to identify with the character that it's going to play in order to play it, or else the soul would just be where he is, kind of deal. He wouldn't actually immerse himself. So it's kind of supposed to be like that, right? But that's at the same time, I think we are supposed to have established a communication with the soul or the spirit or the more the less physical worlds. I think it's when we have connection and communication between these worlds, it will help us to live a better life in this experience that we are experiencing. Yeah, so the brain is basically trying to ground us in the VR system. Yeah, and that, again, that is a good thing. We are doing this on purpose. I believe. Yeah. Yeah, and actually, this is very related to my experience, actually, because I've discovered like the people who have these Kundalini awakenings, they have large. It happens very crazy things in their brain, in their like brain waves. So it becomes a lot of gamma waves, and you can see a delta wave underneath the gammas. And also the frequency is like enormous energy, uh, like actually unreal amounts of energy, which is why when you have this experience, it's like it feels like waking up, because that's literally what happens. You wake up both to the metaphysical and physical reality in a sense, and in a simultaneous way, actually. And I think that's very clear by how it looks like both high delta, like enormous delta and enormous gamma on top of that. So it kind of it makes everything in this virtual reality more clear, and also more the metaphysical world is also much more clear in that state. In fact, I've never felt, and I forgot to say that I never used drugs, so this experience happened for me without the drugs, just to get that out there. And I've never felt so associated with my physical tissues, and also with my metaphysical kind of bodies, because it was like I've never been so much in my body, and I've never been so much outside my body at the same time. And that is what happened in that experience. And I kind of understood later that this is basically S and N is like I was fully plugged into the S world, and I was fully plugged into the N world, or well, fully at least, by unthinkable amounts, large, more than normal human conscious experience. Yeah, so it's basically a superconscious state of being, which is often referred to enlightenment. So basically, I was enlightened, and I had enlightenment in that experience. It's what it means, like lights up, like you wake up and you understand how things work and who you really are, and that was my experience. And there's probably different degrees to how enlightening experience can be, and I think it's going to be a gradual progress, because actually you gotta, even if you have this amazing experiences, your body or your habitual self wants to stay the same. So even if you have these super cool experiences, your habitual self is going to want you to stay the same as you did before. So this is more like it shows me the way, right? And it shows me how I should change my habitual personality in order to get closer and closer to that more authentic state, where we are actually kind of the demigods. Like you have you could say the N world is the God world, and the S world is the human world. And it's like being half human and half God, because you're tapped into the human, but you are basically, with open chakras and stuff, you have much more influence, and you understand what life is for, and you understand how to create, and that creates basically a very different reality, which I think is why we are here. I think we kind of made this reality by becoming unconscious in a way, and the unconscious evolution has been kind of survival. But I think what is actually supposed to happen is that we wake up and we sustain ourselves less and less with survival, but more and more with authenticity and creation. So it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be what. Right, my phone cut somewhere, and well, what I was about to say was that I think the unconscious evolution in our reality has been about survival, and it's kind of these unconscious programs that just try to survive in a way, and it's been kind of random. It's kind of random where we have evolved ourselves. It's just so we can survive and grow. But I think the evolution from now and until we become more and more conscious is going to be less and less about survival, and it's going to be more and more about authenticity and basically creating heaven, essentially, some reality that is good to live in for consciousness. So the more conscious we are, the more we will try to create a world where consciousness can thrive, basically. While the beginning of making a virtual reality like this maybe requires the reality to be unaware of itself, unaware of divinity, basically. And when it's unaware, it's going to just like it's basically unconscious. It's no consciousness in the reality, and if it's no consciousness in the reality, there's no free will to kind of shape, and there's no heartfelt knowing of who they actually are. That like it's not the unconscious things, like the most unconscious animals, for instance, they lack this recognition of their soul and who they really are, and that's why they are kind of trying to survive rather than trying to become who they really are. So the idea is like we have kind of used probably our imagination as a way to adapt to the environment and to survive, basically. But what's going to happen now is like no longer is it about surviving. Well, it's kind of about surviving still, but this time it's more like the species starts to understand the best way to survive, and the best way to survive is really love. It's like if an animal is wanting to dominate the other animals by kind of being the king, the shark or the lion or whatever, that's kind of it kind of works in survival. But what works even better if all the animals and everything that lives actually starts to collaborate together, like they kind of even if they are different from each other and so forth, they are starting to become friends and becoming like this one new group being, and then they can kind of use all their individual competences to assist in that collaboration, and it will be like it will be the absolute best way to survive is to collaborate with everything, with nature and with everything that lives, and also to shape ourselves in new ways. So taking new forms, basically, starting to develop ourselves in ways that is not primarily motivated by survival, but more motivated by love. Yeah, because that's the self-sustained, the most self-sustainable way to evolve. It's kind of like the cancer can live by being the bully in a way. it can kind of being a bully to the other cells and survive by doing that, but in the end it's gonna also kill itself because the organism won't actually work anymore. So that's kind of the maladaptive way to evolve, which have happened a lot in survival, I believe. So when we instead develop or are motivated by love, we create these collaborations between all the cells or everything that lives, and it ends up with basically with a heaven instead of a place where only the cancer are thriving and nobody else, kind of thing. And then the cancer even kills itself, right? So that is like just the idea, the concept. Okay. Yeah, so NI awareness, they are like this awareness is focusing on recognizing or sensing what is primordial to the virtual reality. I've talked a little bit about this in the before. So NI is kind of many NI people doesn't like imagination that much because they kind of want to be taken seriously, right? So they are like oftentimes they are like coming with these concepts like you have water and air and fire and earth and stuff, and they are explaining this to people. For example, an INFJ, right, are explaining this concept to someone, and let's say the other someone is an ENFP, and the ENFP will be like, oh, this is a great imagination. I can make a movie after this. I love it, right? And the NI doesn't feel that she is taken seriously, right? Because she meant this about reality. It was not some kind of fun concept to make a game or a movie out of. It was actually more about recognizing what is primordial to the virtual reality, like what is the core archetypes and what is all of this made of. Yeah. But on the other hand, what NI awareness are good at when it comes to imagination is to hold the same imagination like in a very solid way, so they can kind of have very this goal orientated focus, because they like their image is so, they can hold it so clearly, like they focus on it all the time. And it's going to, like this focus they are having, it's going to influence their thoughts and their actions and their feelings and everything they need to get into that image and goal. So that is a very impressive quality that NI has, which is related to manifestation, to kind of just hold the image over a longer period of time. Because that is essentially what is going to habituate this focus into your habitual personality. Because if you focus on some kind of something new that you didn't have before, but you don't focus on it every day and all the time, it's not going to habituate in your personality. So it's just gonna be forgotten, and it's not gonna end up anywhere. You're not gonna get there in a way. That's why to have a very scattered mind, like ideas and images, like everywhere, it's likely to not take you into at least not a specific direction that you want, right? You gotta hold the image that you wanna get to. Yeah. And NE awareness or NE focus is going to be about creating virtual reality in a way. Like you kind of make, you can use NE to kind of make this picture of of different ideas, different archetypes and images, and you get this new kind of more complex imagination, which can be, for example, can turn into a game, for example, a very like sophisticated and well put together game, for instance, which is it is also an image and an idea, but it's more complex, basically. So that is a way to use NE to kind of manifest a more complex image, if you will. Yeah, which also are, as we said earlier, that imagination and creation is basically the same thing in Kataronics. So this is basically kind of creating a virtual reality, and that is what a new game is. It's a new virtual reality, which people can experience and play. Yeah. Or also you can create your own kind of experience. For example, your own habitual personality is also an unique experience that you can experience. So it's kind of, that is also a virtual reality within another virtual reality. Okay. Yeah, so NE is kind of inventive. It's I've been calling it inventive intuition, because it's like you have this ability to form complex ideas and concepts, because you are aware of many possibilities at once. Like you know about all the possibilities, or a lot of possibilities, and then you kind of can pick the possibility that you think are best, and then you can also use all of these possibilities to make a new possibility by combining all the possibilities to basically a new complex possibility. Yeah. Yeah, so NI, I've been called lucid intuition, and the reason for that is because since it's about recognizing or sensing internally, or like in the metaphysical bodies, the primordial VR systems or virtual realities, like more core virtual realities is what it basically means. It means virtual realities closer to source is what it means. For example, chakras, archetypes, the Akashic record, and for instance angels too, like beings. It's actually usually it's INFJs. They are very often claiming to be in contact with angels. That is something I've seen, a pattern I've been seeing over and over and over, and we can kind of maybe there's different reasons for, like, we can think about different reasons for why that is the case. But if you ask and talk a lot to different INFJs, you will actually realize that many of these INFJs, they believe in angels, and they feel like they have had like this protective energy around them, like angels who are kind of comforting them and caring for them, and making sure they are going the right path in their life, and so forth. Which I've started to believe that, because I think it's actually true. I've been talking to a lot of INFJs, and I think in the end it's because they have this NI, lucid intuition, that they are capable of grasping this more kind of deeper realities. That's why they are able to grasp these deeper realities. And also because of FE, I think when you have FE, you kind of have this awareness of what is alive around you. So they have like this perception into the deeper reality, plus the perception of external living content, and that is why I think they are aware of such as angels and spirit guides is very normal too. Archangel, guardian angel, like guardian angel and spirit guides are very very normal for INFJs to talk about. But actually, if you want to study this, you gotta be kind of aware that INFJs are very private about this stuff. They don't really want to share this stuff with people. In fact, they when I kind of discover this, they are kind of they kind of don't like it because they don't want me to see who they are in a way. But it's been multiple times on, for example, a pub, and I've been I just usually when I see an INFJ, I almost know it instantly that this is an INFJ, and I can further use my intuition and evaluate that. Can I ask this question? And if I can, I will. And I've probably asked it three times is what I've been asking it 3 times, and all of those 3 times the INFJ did believe in angels, and it was like that's the first thing I said to the person. Like I didn't say hi, blah blah blah. I was like, it was the first thing I said because I really find it fun to guess and get it right, especially when it should be wrong but it's right. So that's really funny to me. Not all INFJs believes in angels, just to say that. It's like you can kind of grasp it on the vibe. Usually if they are more spiritual, that's typically when that's the case. Or when they are, you can actually kind of notice in their vibe, like, because if a person believes in something, it's going to shape everything about the person, basically. Yeah, when a person believes something, and especially like if their chakras are more open, it can be sensed, and that's usually when people are spiritual. It's like when they are more open and more. You can kind of sense it on their energy, right? That's what I'm trying to get to. So that's also how I could pin down the INFJs. I could actually ask this question too. Okay, so lucid dreaming in a virtual reality dream. What do I mean by that? Yeah, so I called it lucid intuition, right? So the thing is, when we are lucid in a dream, it's kind of, we are aware of dreaming, so we are not so identified with what's happening in the dream. In fact, we know that we are outside the dream. That's like, we know that's where our true body is outside the dream. So you can start to not be so identified in the dream that you're having, and that means you can also change it, right? You can change what's going on in the dream. I remember when I was a kid and got lucid dream, I was it was like I was in this ski elevator above I don't know the English words, but like a kraken basically, a monster. And I had that nightmare several times, but like when I learned to get lucid, I could just turn myself into a superhero, and I had all the power that I needed to defeat that kraken anyway. So it was like the nightmare turned into no big deal, right? I could just in fact I felt good instead. So that's what lucid means in this context. Is like you have the ability to understand this reality that we believe is reality. Like we we are deceived by the reality that we see. Like in the dream, we also believe in the dream because we're lost in, we're identified with it, right? And if you're lucid, you kind of understand the dream more as yourself, essentially. And you can see a lot of NI people. They oftentimes they kind of understand that what happens in the reality is not so random, but more like it's more like a dream that you're dreaming unconsciously. So they kind of look at events in a very different way than people who are more lost in the dream. So it's more like that they feel less victimized because they know that every bad thing that happens in reality is more like feedback to yourself. Feedback. And I'm not sure if it's completely like that, to be honest, but like that is a very valuable perspective to take and a perspective to have with you. I think it's like that at least partially, maybe even fully, but at least partially I think it's like that. So it's a very you can experiment with it. So that's what I've been doing a lot. Like if I'm in a scenario in real life that it's maybe I feel misunderstood or maybe I feel like a victim in some way, and I'm going to, rather than blaming my environment, I'm going to this is probably my fault in a way, even though I'm not I don't know that I'm doing it. So in that scenario when I feel misunderstood, I could try to reshape my perception, and since my perception is changed, my feelings will also change. And if my perception is okay, if I choose to not feel misunderstood in this context, will it happen again in the future? Will I still experience that I'm misunderstood all the time? And in my experience, I think it's been helped a lot to kind of change my response to what's happening to me. And if you do that over and over, I think it's gonna shape your thoughts and feelings, and also actually how the reality dreams itself is like a collective dream probably, and like you the energies will kind of support also the life around you and yourself to kind of end up in a different place. So you don't have to experience this emotion over and over and over and over in different ways. Yeah, like for example, if you don't feel loved, if you feel unlovable, maybe reality and your own body actually tries what it can to make you experience that experience over and over and over, because the reality kind of thinks that you want that experience because you are creating it, because you are sending this emotion out to the universe, and the universe might say then, okay, you want to experience this emotion, so we are going to send it to you over and over. And also in SI, since SI is stability, it's kind of the same as like if you have a chronic emotion or belief in your habitual self, it's going to try to stay the same. So it's going to try to reintroduce the emotion habitually across your life if you have it deeply habituated, that emotional signature, which could be I'm unlovable, for example. That could be a signature, or emotional emotional signature. Yeah. And again, I'm not sure if that is a reality, but it's very worth to entertain the idea and just test for yourself: is this true or is it not? Yeah. So that's the kind of there's going to be a little bit of repetition. So the world as a body is kind of, that's what I'm saying, that NI is kind of more, they are looking at their whole life as their body, right? Like they have more metaphysical bodies they are aware of. So they're kind of looking at the totality of their life experience, and they are kind of understanding events outside of themselves as a part of their body, basically. At least the high NI does that, I believe, just from my observations, by the way. Because I've been trying to look a lot into NI myself, because I believed it was one of my functions that needed the most healing. So I've been kind of studying NI heroes and NI in general, to kind of understand what I'm doing wrong in my cognition. Why do I relate to NI in the wrong way, right? That was my in my past. I was very. I didn't like to see into the future very much, because I saw it so clearly. Like, my future is going in the wrong way, like in a dark way, and that is basically like I just used my NI wrongly in a way. I didn't have the same optimism that real NI really are having, because they understand manifestation better than I would. So they know that they should be optimistic as a way to get into a brighter future. Yeah, so they are focusing on changing the dream or the reality. That is what NI kind of likes to do. It likes to change reality or manifest something new by focusing on that one goal or image. Yeah, and this goal is actually already true in nonsense or in intuition. The goal is already it's already correct, right? It's already true. So, for example, when I said that I if I'm in a scenario where I feel misunderstood, in a scenario. Maybe I did maybe a person thinks badly of me, but I didn't do anything wrong, for example, and I'm blaming that person because that person doesn't know who I am or whatever. And even if that is kind of accurate, it's still more accurate that it's my feeling of being misunderstood that actually attracted this event to occur. So what I could do in that scenario is my new goal could be more like I want to manifest this emotion, like the emotion of not being misunderstood, like people understand you clearly. I could try to manifest that goal by basically knowing that it's already true. It's already true in nonsense. It's not manifest yet, but it's true if I believe it, and if I hold the image, and if I feel like it is true, regardless of how many times kind of reality comes back to me and says no matter how many times I get misunderstood after that, if I can hold the image of not being misunderstood and not feeling misunderstood, it's going to kind of force reality to change. It's going to force even my own thoughts. Maybe it, for example, that's a more down to earth explanation, which many may prefer, which is it will kind of influence my thoughts, for instance, so I can explain with thoughts that it's more easier to grasp, for instance. Yeah. It can also be like, as you know, I'm very spiritual in a way. At least my new understanding is very spiritual. And if I want to be understood, maybe reality attracts to me more spiritual people. So we kind of have more understanding, and I will feel understood as a result of that. Okay, yeah, so Ni plus Si is kind of best at synthesizing and interpreting unconscious data. So Ni is kind of the unconscious of metaphysical bodies, and Si is kind of the subconscious of the physical bodies, or the most like superficial systems and realities. Yeah. And Ni has vivid and unique imagery. Imagination, vivid and unique imagination. So they kind of have a very unique. I'm just. This is a parallel I have to Fi for instance, because Fi is very unique. Unique personality in a way. Unique. The Fi know what she desire, so she kind of makes a very unique thing that doesn't look like somebody else, because she knows what she likes. And the same is kind of true for Ni. It kind of have a very unique way to imagine things. So these imaginations of an Ni can be very actually kind of hard for other people to understand in a way. It's a very like quirky imagination, I could imagine. Just maybe. And they experience symbols in a very energetic way, because they kind of are able to identify with the symbol and with the energy that it holds. I already said something about this, like same with music. If you want to have the music to have more effect on yourself, you kind of just identify with the music and focus into it, and you like not everyone knows how to do that, which kind of is the difference between background music and music that you really listen to and which evokes emotions in you. Yeah. So Ni plus Fe, this is what I talked about before, makes this angel perception in a way, or guardian angels, or archangels, or spirit guides. So they are able to feel this non-personal emotion by tuning into the metaphysical environment, essentially. So people with Ni plus Fe are typically the ones who can channel spirits and souls. And channeling is, by the way, like when people close their eyes and they are feeling like some other entity giving them impressions, feelings, thoughts, images, and they then kind of interpret these sensations into a message that they speak out. So they kind of it's actually the same as intuition in a way. It's more like a super intuition, like the channel is kind of wide open, and you get all this clear data into your body, and you kind of in the Ni plus Fe context, they kind of separate them. They kind of move themselves, their own habitual self. They kind of move it to the side, and then they listen to this external intuition, which often comes from what they would describe as something alive, like for example, spirit guides. Someone also calls this stuff for collectives, like a living collective, and that is basically what Fe is in Kataronics. It's kind of the idea in Kataronics is that FE is actually a collective being. So in Kataronics, collective beings is as real as individual beings. They're kind of two sides of the same coin, if you want. Yeah, so what is the existential purpose of NI? It's kind of the ascension process and awakening to the whole body of reality and self. So it kind of helps us to basically wake up to where are the rest of our body that we didn't know about. That's kind of what it wants to do. So it makes us familiar with the familiar unknown, because what that means is like you actually know about this unknown is actually known, but you have forgotten it because you have become unconscious in the process of survival. So yeah, it's a re-established like a familiarity with what you actually, the body that you always had in a way. And that's why they feel suddenly can feel like, oh, we have chakras, we have meridians. They get these insights like intuitive downloads almost, and they just believe it's true because they can feel it, they can sense it in their metaphysical body. Yeah. So, and the goal is kind of, the divinity is kind of the end goal for NI, to kind of understand that we are the divine body. It's we just didn't know, right? We didn't know it, and through knowing this, through like sensing in the metaphysical bodies, it develops intuition, and then into super intuition, and then into channeling. It's kind of you get more and more contact with the totality of your body, and also when you're channeling other beings, you are essentially doing that through the collective body, right? Because we all share the same body, so we can also talk through the same body. And if we allow for it, right? And that's kind of what these NI, FE people does. They believe, they have faith, and they put themselves aside, so they are kind of making themselves open, and then they have faith in what comes through in a way. Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, when I'm kind of making this theory, I think I'm also channeling actually when I'm understanding all of this, but I'm not channeling from another being than myself. I think it's my soul in a way. I think I'm just channeling more of a personal. It's kind of like if NIFE channels impersonal people, you could say maybe FI and plus NE channels the personal essence or core of self instead. Basically the soul, right? Okay. Yeah, and NI is very tolerant of unfamiliar perspectives. So this is a function that actually, again, kind of steps outside of the habitual self. So it's more open to what is said by everyone and everything. It's kind of almost a sort of spiritual discipline in a way, which helps the person to explore much more of what is actually out there, and this also affects what this person chooses to or feels like is true in their intuition or in their feeling, or in both. Yeah, and the core mechanism is therefore, the core mechanism is manifesting reality, because when you focus on an image, it's also created as a new reality. So it's kind of the most simple in the quantum example, when the particle pops up right somewhere, you can kind of think of it's Ni choosing to focus on the particle on that place. That's kind of what it is. While Ne, or extroverted intuition, is more like it's also the same thing, but it's more aware of it's aware of every place the particle can be put. And also you can also think of it like multi-Ni, so it's you can also think that external intuition could manifest 3 particles at the same time by holding the focus on 3 particles at once, right? But Ni would kind of do it in 1 particle, and it would manifest faster and more clearly because again, it's about focus. But Ne is very good at a multi-focus in a way, a multi-complex imaginations, you could perhaps call it. Yeah, so Ni is kind of manifesting this new visionary focus. It's very, very effective for long-term goals and so forth. Ne, inventive intuition, is the perception and evaluation of possible possibilities. Yeah, basically already said that. It invents new ways to combine images. It's transcendental, philosophical in its quality. So it kind of philosophy is kind of Ne in a way. You have all of these perspectives that you are looking at, and then you kind of transcend your perspective a bit by intuitively seeing all the dimensions of something. Yeah. So it's kind of it depends, like, is it combined with TE or FE or what other function it's combined with, but it basically actively tries to understand something from a variety of dimensions. Yeah. Until it comes to a conclusion based on all of those ways to see something. Yeah. So here's the kind of I tried to illustrate the difference between Ne and Ni. And the Ne solution is kind of like a hawk perspective. It tries to look everywhere. What's the best way to go? What's all the ways I can look at this in order to come to a solution? That's kind of what Ne is very good at. While Ni solution is actually gonna sound kind of weird, but it's kind of more about bending reality to obey her. So it's kind of like the symbol of this Moses going through the ocean by splitting the ocean in two. That is kind of what Ni kind of does. It kind of just focuses on a goal, and it doesn't care about so much about like all the perspectives and how it should get there. It just kind of knows how to manifest that goal, and it kind of just expects reality to orchestrate around this vision and goal so that the goal is reached. And partially how it's done is that the Ni person believes that it's already true before it's true. It believes it believes in the reality that it has happened, even though it didn't yet in the virtual reality. Yeah. So that's yeah, that's kind of how it is. Of course, in a real personality, it's not exactly like that, because now I'm isolating the functions. So in a real Ni hero, for instance, they still use TE and FE to kind of gather external data from different perspectives, right? So they're not only using the NI solution, but the NI solution is what NI in itself kind of does. Yeah. Yeah, so NI goes straight through what looks like obstacles, essentially by ignoring them and making their path bigger than reality. Yeah, I can take that. It's you can actually, this is already known by many people or organizations that you, for example, in the pilot profession, they are taught to not focus on obstacles in the air when they are airborne, because if they focus on obstacles, it's shown that it's actually bigger chance for them to hit the obstacle. So they are actually thought, that they are teached to focus on the open path in a way. And the same is true for skiers. Skiers, it's the same for skiers. So if you are standing on ski and you're in a forest, for instance, there's all these obstacles, all of these trees in the way, and if you focus on the trees, you are going to be more likely to hit the tree than if you focus on the path between the trees. And that is also well known in the scientific way, essentially. Even my dad, he told me this when I started to drive and get the driving license, that it was because I had this habit of looking at cars coming towards me, because I didn't want to hit the car, right? I was kind of anxious when I started to drive. I'm not gonna lie, it was not my field. But he just told me, don't focus on the cars, focus on the road and where you're going and the white line on the side. Just focus on that and be relaxed, right? And this is my dad is an INTJ. So I think now that actually he has this intuitive capacity to understand intuitively that basically if I look on the cars, I'm more likely to manifest the hitting the object, right? And being anxious and all that. So yeah, it was kind of funny because my dad was actually he didn't have any logical explanation for what he said. He was just kind of annoyed with me. He was annoyed with why I focused on the cars coming against me. But basically it was just his intuition understanding that it's not how you do it, and it's not how you get to the goal. Or yeah, that's basically what it was, right? At least that's my conclusion. Yeah. And since NE is so aware of possibilities, it selects an easier way intellectually. Yeah. NE is kind of a very intellectual function because it's able to see everything from so many perspectives. Sometimes even finding himself lost in all of the perspectives actually, and that is because there's always perspectives in a way. So if any kind of goes into a pocket of something, and it finds all the perspectives in the pocket, and maybe the perspectives in the very pocket is actually infinite, right? It's never ending pocket of perspectives. But what if the perspectives he actually needs is outside of that pocket, which he finds all of that within? And that is kind of what happened to me when I had my problem with anxiety. because when I had anxiety, it was like I could think of so many reasons and perspectives that this feeling I had were true or could be true, right? And when I really understood what's going on, what actually happened is that I was I was stuck within the emotion of fear. And when you're stuck when you have the emotion of fear, you're going to think only fearful thoughts, basically. At least primarily, you're going to see very, very much fearful things. And if you have a very good NE and couple that with an anxiety, you will have a lot of reason for why you are afraid, right? But the truth is that you find all of these perspectives within the limitation of the emotion, and you can find infinite perspectives within that emotion. So it doesn't help, right? When what really helps is to change the emotion, and then you suddenly get all of these. Maybe you change the emotion, and you are not fearful anymore, and suddenly you see like, there's actually way easier to find perspectives within this emotion, and that everything would actually be fine. It wouldn't be a problem at all. I was just focusing on the right things, right? So that is a very good lesson for NE in a way, because I think NE people are very they believe they can see everything in a way, because in a way they are very good at looking at all of these different perspectives at once. But we also gotta remember that there's infinite perspectives within limited areas in a way. Yeah. Okay, so the existential purpose of NE. It's the infinite possibilities of manifestations, both within hell and within heaven. And that's kind of goes back to what I just said. Like, there's infinite ways to love, and there's infinite ways to not love, to be unloving. So it's NE is just like this existence of everything, every possibility in a way, all the potentials. And there's, as we know in math, there is more infinities than just one. So there's NE is infinite in very many ways, you could say. So there's an infinity in heaven, and there's also an infinity in hell, basically. And placebo is basically, or optimism or placebo is basically heaven, and anxiety and nocebo is basically hell. And you can find endless reasons within both of those directions. So if you have a closed heart, if you're a human, basically, because I think humans are very closed in their heart, because we live in survival and in a reality where we think we're gonna die and all of this crazy stuff. So I think just when you are a human, you are very likely to use your NE to justify why you believe in nihilism and these things, because when we are lost in the emotion and in the habitual personality that we have, we're going to see so many reasons for like we think we see this amazing with, but we do. Tries to support the emotion that we have, because it's made by the very emotion. Yeah. The existential purpose of NE is I actually believe it's game development, which is I think why we exist is because we want to experience games and to have fun, to generate games for having fun. It's like Divinity wants to have fun, so it's going to make different games and going to make those games as enjoyable as possible. And I think, as I said earlier, I think it starts with unconsciousness as a necessary component to make a new game, and then you can kind of the consciousness within the game can start to wake up and finally understand how do we actually want to play this game. We have space and we have time. How do we want to enjoy it and have fun with it? Yeah. And again, these are just my intuitions. So I'm not saying it's true. It's just perspectives to entertain, and maybe it will give you insights and so forth. And E together with NI is kind of the meta, the intellect behind the virtual reality in a way. If you can become lucid with NI and then use NE to kind of see all the perspectives behind the personal, the habitual human self. If you can go to that place and then see all the possibilities from a higher vibration in a way, then you have like a very intellectual mind, which is not tricked by nocebo effects. In a way, you could say that placebo actually doesn't exist. We are just under the grip of nocebo, actually. So placebo could be seen as just the removal of already existing nocebo. That's a very maybe accurate way to see it. And so NE, why it exists is kind of, it transcends, it gives new possibilities, which is able to transcend what was not possible. So it exists because it will make it possible to birth new things, rather than let's say if God is a thing and you have only God and God can't do anything. It's just this person alone in the universe. This is just an analogy, just to be clear. But like, it would be even if that being would feel love, I think it would feel boring in a way. So the NE is kind of its purpose is kind of to make fun, to make consciousness able to have fun, and that's kind of the same as SE. If you remember what I said about SE. Okay. So the next function we are going to talk about is feeling, which is connected to the heart. But since we're done with intuition, I'm just gonna end the video there, and we take feeling in the next video. Yes. I hope the video on intuition were insightful. I know it's very out there, but maybe some of it some of it made sense to you. Yeah.